You are listening to the Live Well with Arthritis podcast, helping you to live a healthier and happier life with your arthritis. Every episode contains science-backed support, expert advice, and a deep understanding of the reality of living with arthritis. I'm your host, Emily Johnson, also known as Arthritis Foodie. I'm a bestselling author and the founder of Live Well with Arthritis. Whether you've been living with arthritis for years, or you're navigating a new diagnosis, or perhaps you have symptoms and are looking for answers, this podcast is for you. For more support, you can join the waitlist for my course, Live Well with Arthritis, on www.livewellwitharthritis.com/waitlist. That's www.livewellwitharthritis.com/waitlist. Places are limited, so the earlier you sign up, the better. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode all about my diagnosis, journey, and story with arthritis. I've been living with arthritis for the last 12 years, so there's plenty to discuss. I'm going to try and keep it to under an hour. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to be providing you with 3 pain relief tips, 3 things that I basically can't live without, having had arthritis for a number of years. So, where to begin? I'm going to begin right at the beginning, which is when I was 4 years old. I was hospitalised with swollen knees for a week, and nobody knew at the time what was happening. I was checked for juvenile idiopathic arthritis at the time. I was checked for a year afterwards as well, and nothing came of it. I do have vivid memories of being in the hospital at that age and being carried to the bathroom to use the bath, to use the facilities in the hospital, and then being carried back to my bed because I physically couldn't walk at that time. So aside from that sort of period of time of having swollen knees as a child, I had absolutely no symptoms at all for the rest of my life. I lived a pretty normal life. Not to say that living with arthritis isn't normal, but it's just a different way of having to live life. You make adjustments. So yeah, when I was living without having arthritis, I was eating what I wanted. I was going all over the place, not sleeping very well, not really taking care of myself. And the thing is, all of the things that I do now, I would actually recommend that everybody does for the sake of their longevity, their health, their well-being, just, protecting themselves, protecting their bodies. However, at the time, of course, being a very young person, I was not really looking after myself, and I was at my friend's barbecue in 2013, and I ended up with food poisoning off the back of that barbecue. And the food poisoning lasted around 2 weeks. And I will be explicit, I basically had diarrhea for 2 weeks. And because it was really quite severe, I did get in touch with the GP. But by the time they wanted the stool sample, that part of the food poisoning had actually gone, and I was starting to feel better. But my gut was in such a mess for years actually afterwards, which is all connected, of course, as we know, to autoimmunity. So anyway, after that period of 2 weeks, I thought I was getting better, but actually I wasn't. And my symptoms started to show themselves in the form of having a really bad cold, sleeping 16 hours a day, and I just started my 3rd year of university. So I was wanting to join in and integrate with the flatmates, the new flatmates that I had at the time, but I felt so unwell and I just could not participate at all. And by that point, my thumbs had swollen, this finger here, my ring finger on my right hand had swollen. And I was really unwell. And I was going to the GP on campus and I was being told, oh, it's just Freshers' flu, which for anyone listening, Freshers' Week in the UK, everybody I'm not sure if it's a thing now, but it was then. Everybody goes out, has drinks with their friends, and typically because there's so many people mixing that haven't mixed before, there ends up being a lot of illness and colds and flus, etc. So I got told I had fresh as flu. And then I also went to A&E because my thumbs were so sore and I couldn't bend them and I didn't know what to do. So my friend Charlie came with me and she very kindly sat with me in A&E and they couldn't tell me anything. They said, "Oh, we don't really know what's going on. Just go home and rest," sort of thing. Contact your GP again. We'll get a referral, etc. I was just passed from GP to GP to clinician to clinician, and nobody could tell me what was going on. I ended up taking 6 weeks off university to rest at home with my mum, who kindly looked after me, cooked me lots of lovely, delicious meals, and really got me to a better place so that I could go back to university because I really didn't want to miss out on studying and being with my friends. So I went back to university, spoke with my tutors, and made them aware of what was going on. I ended up having allowances made for me during my exams. So I had a laptop that I could type with in extra time because holding a pen was really difficult. And so that period of time was really hard. And also I wasn't given a diagnosis either. And I was still waiting to be seen by a specialist, by a rheumatologist. So then I did get seen by a rheumatologist who told me, "Oh, we think it's fibromyalgia." I didn't know what that was. And that's getting more research and more awareness now. But back then, especially, 10 years ago, really did not know what that was. I was then told it was inflammatory arthritis because I had an ultrasound on my hands, and they said that the swelling and the fluid in my joints was severe. So they said, right, we actually think it's inflammatory arthritis, and typically inflammatory reactive arthritis, and typically it will last a year and then it will go. So I thought, okay, fine, I can cope with this for a year. That's fine. But it didn't last a year. Um, so I ended up going on medication, which seemed to start to help. I then went on immunosuppressant, which I was told you can't really drink alcohol, you drink this amount of alcohol per week. However, being the young person I was, I really could not get on board with that at all. I'm completely teetotal now, but back then I really struggled with the social element of drinking and feeling pressured to drink. So I did end up drinking probably a little bit more than I should have done, and I ended up with a really badly swollen knee, and so had to have a steroid injection in my bum, which was really not. I'm laughing now, but it was absolutely awful because I didn't know that's what was going to happen. I was just told go in this room and have a steroid injection, and I was like, oh, okay, like thinking it was going in my arm, and then the nurse was like, no, it's going in into your derriere. So that was not fun. And I ended up crying mainly because I just didn't know what to expect. And I was kind of really overwhelmed with everything. So that was, yeah, very difficult point in my life. And also at that time, I didn't want anybody to know that I had arthritis. So I very much kept it to myself. Only my close family really knew about it, and a couple of friends at university and things. And aside from that, I really just wanted to pretend it wasn't there, which now I absolutely do not advocate for doing that. I think absolutely try and keep going and stay positive as much as you can, but you do have to make adjustments when you're first diagnosed and get your head around that diagnosis as well. And also being open with your loved ones really helps. It really makes a difference in how you're able to cope with the condition, how you're able to manage it. So that was the sort of first part of living with arthritis. And then I went on a stronger dose of the immunosuppressant, and my arthritis seemed to go into remission. So I was like, okay, fantastic, amazing. I'm just gonna, in that case, carry on with my life and move to London and start my career here as a 22-year-old. Super excited about being in the big city with my friends. And yeah, and I, again, wasn't really taking care of myself because I thought, oh, the medications will just handle it. I don't need to worry about anything else. So I wasn't really eating all the right things, wasn't really taking care of myself, didn't really have an interest in it either. And I was so sick all the time. So my not only was my gut health in a mess, and I ended up seeing the GP, and she was like, you need to go lactose free because I think you've got gut sensitivity. I just didn't know how to handle any of that at the time. So my gut was in a mess. I also kept having colds and flus all the time. I always had a cold. I probably had like 10 or more colds a year where I was just like blocked nose, sneezing in the office. And I just really wasn't a well person and I would hide it from friends and family. So, yeah, I wasn't doing very well. And then I sort of seemed to manage things fairly okay. And then I got a really bad bout of flu Christmas 2017. And I believe I was off work for 2, 3 weeks, or at least working and then going back to bed, working, going back because I was just really, really unwell. And during that time, I ended up having the fluid moved to my ankles, and first in my right ankle and then in my left ankle. And I was like, oh, okay, it's not been here. I've not had arthritis in my ankles before. This is new. But I knew it was my immune system attacking itself and having a reaction to the cold and flu bug, and it just kind of brought everything all back to the surface again in a big way. And my medications weren't really doing what they were doing. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just have a steroid injection and that will tide me over. Usually, when I had a steroid injection, it would just tide me over to the point where, okay, now the pain's a bit less and I feel a bit better. However, the steroid injection didn't help the pain and I didn't feel better. And then by summer 2018, I was really at rock bottom with my health. I wasn't well at all in terms of my arthritis had gotten worse, not better. And I was speaking with my colleagues at the time who were very healthy, and they were like, have you looked into diet? Do you think that maybe could help? And I said to them, yes, I looked at it a few years ago. I'm not really sure. But you know what? I've got nothing to lose. So yes, I'm going to look into it. And I remember trying a matcha for the first time and being like, what is this? This is disgusting. But then after like 4 or 5, I was like, no, I love this. I love matcha. And obviously all the health benefits around it, etc. So I started looking into diet, food, lifestyle, everything. Did a complete overhaul of what I was eating at the time, which was, oven foods, pre-prepared goods, pasta bakes, it wasn't unhealthy, but it wasn't health optimized and optimized for anti-inflammatory nutrition, which is what I do now. So yeah, I really did a complete 180 of my entire life. And I became really obsessed with it. So I was obsessed with how it was affecting my joints, my sleep, my stress levels, everything. I became totally absorbed in it. And that's when Arthritis Foodie started, and I started documenting this online. And I did it anonymously, just posting recipes. And and it became because I couldn't find anything at the time like it. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go for it and blog about my experience and see if there's anyone else out there. And I found so many young people my age with arthritis, and I couldn't believe it. And it really made me feel so much less alone because in hospitals, in waiting rooms, I hadn't met anyone my age. So it was really amazing to have that community. And there's so much more out there now, and there's so many people talking about it, which is fantastic, and sharing their experiences with their conditions. And I'm all for it. I think it's brilliant. So Arthritis Foodie started to sort of grow, and I also was growing in my knowledge, and also it was really making a difference to my health. I started to have more energy, my joint pain started to go down, and my joint pain stiffness and my swelling, and I really genuinely was like, okay, there must be something in this. And so I started to do my own research into Mediterranean diets, what is really anti-inflammatory, and how these components come together to help your condition. All, of course, whilst being on medication, because I would never advise people to come off their meds, and always speak to your clinician and your rheumatologist and your doctor about your condition. So this is just what you can do alongside anything else you're doing. So I started to write my book because people were asking me, where did you get this information and how did you do this? And I want to give this a go as well. So I started writing my first book. And originally it was mostly recipes, to be honest, but then I started doing the research around it, and I spoke to my editor at the time, and she recommended adding a bit more to it. And I was like, I agree, like that it's not just diet, it's everything else around it. So I was bringing in more science, more research, and I got several health experts involved. And if you've read the book, you will know it's been signed off by rheumatologist called Dr. Mika Yu, and it's also had contribution from doctors, physiotherapists, nutritionists, you name it. Every chapter has got an expert involved because I'm so dedicated to bringing out information that is correct and that is backed by science and that can help in a positive way without kind of giving you woo-woo effectively. Because when I did start Arthritis Foodie, I did get kind of like oh, what's she doing? Is it a bit woo-woo? But it's not. It's all backed in science. And also, even if it isn't backed in science and it's helping you, that's perfectly okay, because I do get messages about nightshades, and there's no evidence to say that nightshades will impact your inflammation and arthritis. However, I do have followers that say, "Oh, tomato, I cut out tomatoes and it's really reduced my joint pain," which I think I'm all for it. I'm like, do you know what? If that's helping you, do it. But the work that I put out, I have to have the research behind it in order for it to go out. So my first book came out in 2021, and it's a bestseller. It was actually number one in the UK on the first couple of weeks that it came out, which was really exciting. And it's helped tens of thousands of people all over the world. And I've additionally brought out Eat Well with Arthritis as well, which has got lots of recipes in it too. And I couldn't be prouder of those books, and I'm so glad that they're out in the world. And now my goal is to help people through the Live Well with Arthritis podcast and course and everything else that I'm doing as well, which you will see on my website. And I just want people to know that arthritis will not go away. It might, but it tends to not. Once you've been diagnosed with arthritis, you tend to have it for life. So the way that I approach it is that you need to figure out the tools and the things that work for you so that you can feel better from day to day. Even if it's a small thing, do it, because the impact over time will help. And so many people, they'll start a medication. And I remember this. You start a medication and you're told by the doctor, okay, give it 12 weeks to work. And then after 12 weeks, it may still not have had an impact. So they're like, okay, let's extend it and give it 6 months, see if it works. So if you're willing to give medication that amount of time, then you should 100% be willing to dedicate time to your health in terms of diet, lifestyle, sleep, nutrition, stress, all of it. You should be willing to do that for yourself, because once you have those skills to take care of yourself, nobody can take them away. And you have autonomy. You have autonomy over your health every single day for years and years and years. So I would love people to come to my work, to my business, to the podcast, to my books, to the course, and and not come back. I want you to get everything you need so you have all the tools to do this for the rest of your life. That is my goal. And I think it's so important that we have these skills because when I was 25 and I'd hit rock bottom with my arthritis and I had nowhere to turn and I was really down. I was quite close to being fully depressed. And I have had bouts of it before, when my arthritis has been bad and stress and everything else, but particularly in those low points, my mental health took a huge nosedive and I felt completely out of control. And so for living with arthritis and the Live Well with Arthritis course and everything else, it's about not feeling out of control and feeling that there is something you can do every day. And yes, your arthritis might still flare up occasionally, but you will know how to handle it when it does. So, one example is, I had a flare up during a house move, and it wasn't a big one, it wasn't a severe one like I had 18 months ago, but this one was, I was in pain. It was physical pain, it was the stress, and it was also sleep, grief, a combination of things that trigger the flare-ups. But because of all the work that I do on Live Well with Arthritis and Arthritis Foodie, my books and everything else, and all the things I talk about, I also do myself. I knew how to handle that when it came. And I also knew that it would pass. So these flare-ups, they don't last forever and they will pass. So I think that's really important to get across that I still have arthritis, I'm still on medication, but this added extra element has enabled me to manage my condition and live well from day to day and live better and have a better quality of life. And I think with chronic long-term conditions, we're often, I hate to say it, but I feel like sometimes we're often forgotten about because it's not life-threatening. It's not it's not like the worst thing in the world that can happen to you, but it isn't great. So I think that support isn't really there always for conditions like this, and that's why it's so important to be an advocate for your own health and start to help yourself as much as you possibly can. So that's my sort of diagnosis and arthritis journey in a nutshell. However, I'm always open to answering questions and discussing what I've been through more with everybody. So please reach out to me with your questions or any sort of information that you'd like to know about my arthritis journey. I would also like to add that it's seronegative arthritis is my final diagnosis, which I didn't mention in the end. Yes, it went from fibromyalgia to reactive arthritis, and then finally landing on seronegative arthritis, which my rheumatologist deems as being in between rheumatoid and psoriatic arthritis. But effectively, it's an autoimmune disease. And what people don't realize is there's over 100 different types of arthritis, and they all have a basis in inflammation. So a lot of arthritic conditions are autoimmune diseases. And although osteoarthritis isn't classed as an autoimmune disease, it does have inflammation in it. So it's something that's come out sort of in the last, I'd say like last 3 to 5 years. And Versus Arthritis actually have an article about this, in that the inflammation in osteoarthritis is there in a way that we didn't realize it was before. And it's not just wear and tear. You have actually got those inflammatory cytokines in your joints and in your system. So it's not just autoimmunity that I deal with in Live Well with Arthritis. It's the whole spectrum of different types of arthritis that can potentially benefit from the work that I do. So that's pretty much everything I think covered. Before you tune out, I did promise you my 3 pain relief tips that I cannot live without. So I want to share those with you now. The first one is Epsom salt baths. And if you have known me for a while, you will know that I love Epsom salt baths. They are incredible. So Epsom salts has magnesium in it, and there's a theory, it's not 100% certain, but there's a theory, a scientific theory, that when you are in a bath with Epsom salts, the magnesium will go through your skin, transdermal absorption, and you'll get that magnesium in your system, which is very good for a number of things. And it helps so much, especially with sleep. So I'll have an Epsom salt bath when my joints are achy right before bed. I'll have that bath for about 20 minutes, half an hour, listen to a podcast or some calming music or a meditation, and then I will go to sleep. So Epsom salt baths, that's 100% something I can't live without. The second one is my TENS machine. So TENS machines are fantastic. I can link some of the ones that I've used in the past and the one that I use now, hopefully in the link notes. So if you want to have a look at that, you can. But there's so many different ones out there. The TENS machine has these little sticky pads, which electricity is pulsed through, and you can have different vibrations of those electric pulses, and it's absolutely fantastic. And it just tricks your brain into not thinking about the pain or the swelling. It tricks your brain into thinking about the vibrations and the electrical pulses on your joints instead. And I find that really helps so much. So yeah, TENS machine. And then the third one is CBD. So in case you don't know, cannabis oil is the non-psychoactive part of a cannabis plant. And CBD can be used in a number of ways. You can get drops that you put underneath your tongue. You can get creams, you can get oils, you can have CBD teas, you can do all kinds of things with CBD. What I like to do is the CBD oils and creams on, like physically rubbing it into my joints. And then I'll put some fluffy socks on if I've put it on my ankles or, on my hands, etc. I'll just lie calmly. So yeah, Epsom salt baths, TENS machine, and CBD. They're my 3 pain relief methods that I could not live without. So that's everything for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, if you have any questions or you'd like to know more information about the course, you can email me on hello@livewellwitharthritis.com. If you have any recommendations for episode topics, I'd love to hear from you as well. Any questions? I can do an FAQ as well. And of course, you can find me on @Arthritis Foodie, which I will be adding a section at the end, which you can listen to about that anyway. So thank you so much, everybody. And I really hope to see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Live Well with Arthritis podcast. If you're enjoying it, please follow and leave a review. I'd really love to hear from you. To sign up to the waitlist for the Live Well with Arthritis course, head to livewellwitharthritis.com/waitlist. For any questions or to suggest topics, email us over on hello@livewellwitharthritis.com. You can follow me over on @Arthritis Foodie, that's ARTHRITISFOODIE. And you can also follow Live Well with Arthritis on @LiveWellWithArthritis to stay tuned for the latest updates, news, podcast episodes, recipes, and a whole lot more. I'll see you there. Until next time, live well and lots of love from me to you. P.S. Before you go, I have to let you know that this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your medical professional, whether that be your rheumatologist, GP, specialist, or other qualified professional. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.